Hello everyone. Welcome back. Give this video a like and follow me on social media. I will link all of those things below. It's me. What if Russia manages to defeat Ukraine and topple its government? Obviously, this is not something that any of us want to even think about, but it would be irresponsible to not even consider this possibility. I think that we should talk about it. Thank you so much for joining. I don't think that we can rule it out entirely. I think that this risk would likely increase substantially. I think that we all have to be very realistic here. It's very clear that it was not about truly conquering Ukraine because that's an absolutely massive undertaking that would require tens of thousands of additional troops. This war has always been about sending a message to NATO. What would be the consequences of Putin overthrowing the Ukrainian government? Let me know in the comments below. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you back for my next one. And you can find me on social media. I will see you in my next one tomorrow. Take care. Russia wants to show NATO that it's still a relevant power, and that it will not allow any further expansion of NATO. In my personal opinion, Putin's ultimate goal is to prevent NATO from ever having a military presence in Ukraine. Russia is not going to suddenly collapse as a state, but at the same time, I don't think that he would dare to cross that line. So in this case, we're not talking about World War III. But this would certainly lead to a major confrontation between NATO and Russia. And needless to say, it would be devastating for the entire Europe. Even if it suffers a major defeat in Ukraine, it will still remain a nuclear power with a large military. And if its leadership believes that NATO is weak and divided, it might try to take advantage of that. If Putin manages to get away with overthrowing the Ukrainian government without suffering significant consequences, he would be emboldened to continue pursuing his goals. Remember his speech from a couple of weeks ago where he essentially threatened the Baltic states? Well, I wouldn't quite brush it off as just an angry rant. His rhetoric has been very deliberate up until this point. He didn't just wake up one morning and decided to invade Ukraine. This followed years of saber-rattling and creating tensions around Ukraine and making various threats. If you are new here, I hope that you consider subscribing. So this would be a very delicate situation from the perspective of national security for all three of these countries, as well as for Poland and Romania. So I know that many of us are eager to see Russia finally defeated in this war. But what if the opposite happens? Let's start with some basic points first. If Putin overthrows the democratically elected government in Ukraine, this would be a clear violation of international law and would result in strong condemnation from the international community. Of course, we know that Russia doesn't really care all that much about that. Up until now, even though Russia has been a threat to NATO, it did not share a land border with any NATO member state. And yes, you are absolutely right. But when we talk about having a land border, we imply that both sides can easily access that border, that there are no obstacles. That would no longer be the case if Russia invades Ukraine. The presence of Russian troops along the border would effectively block any possibility of unhindered movement across the border. So from that perspective, it would be a land border in name only. If Russia were to conquer Ukraine, it would change dramatically because Ukraine is a significantly larger country than Russia. So it would mean that there is a very high likelihood that Russian troops would stay in place in Ukraine. There is no way that they would pull them back after having invested so much time, effort, and resources into this invasion. So this means that NATO and Russia would share a land border. Point no. 2. If Putin installs a puppet regime in Ukraine, this would make him a neighbor of 3 former Soviet states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And point no. 3. If Putin successfully invades and conquers Ukraine, he would then have a land border with NATO. Now, some of you may say, well, this is not a big deal because there are already land borders between Russia and NATO. Would Putin dare to cross that line? Would he attack a NATO country? So if Putin manages to get away with invading Ukraine, the next target could very well be a NATO country. Think about it this way. What was the main goal of this invasion for Russia? Will he be satisfied with establishing a land border with NATO? I don't think so. Let me know what you think in the comments below.